Talking about top 10 picks is boring to me, so we're not doing that today. And for those of you that are longtime watchers of this channel, you know by now that I do this kind of video every single year, where I talk about guys that are probably going to go on day 2, in some cases day 3, that I don't really think have the national media paying attention to them as much as they should. And in some cases, they're going to be day 2 picks that probably should have gone on day 1. Once upon a time, not too long ago, Nico Collins, Osa Digizua, Kobe Turner, and Creed Humphrey were all in a video that I made just like this one, as kind of overlooked talents that I thought were, I don't want to call them diamonds in the rough, but let's just say underrated. So, sometimes I hit on these guys. And sometimes I miss really, really big, but I'm just going to conveniently ignore all of them. Anyway, we're going to get right into it today. I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Here is number 5 on our countdown of the top 5 underrated prospects in this draft class. This offensive tackle class ended up being not as deep as I was hoping for early on in the process, and there's really not a whole lot of good names to pick from after you get past day 1, but if you do need a potential starting tackle on day 2, Charles Grant, I think, is a pretty good option. He did play a quote-unquote lower level of competition at William & Mary, but if you're just looking at the tools, he's 6'5", 311 with nearly 35-inch arms and unbelievable movement ability. He's built like an NFL tackle. I don't really want to call him raw because he's not raw, but he still can play high at times. He's still trying to learn the position after all. He just started playing football about halfway through high school. So I guess we can consider him a late bloomer of sorts. But despite only playing football for about 6 years of his life, he went from being an all-state wrestler to an under-recruited football player to then having his freshman year disrupted by COVID, but then finally as a redshirt freshman, he started, then became all-conference as a sophomore, then became All-American and a team captain. I mean, the linear line of development and progression here is really, really encouraging. He gets better every single season. And when you combine that with the fact that, again, he's really toolsy, and you can evidently see his wrestling background and how he plays, because despite playing high, he still has really nimble feet and balance through contact, and still somehow just gets guys on the ground through sheer torque alone. I think the upside here is massive. As far as pass protection goes, I do kind of want to adjust this for competition level because let's be real, the William & Mary schedule doesn't really have a whole lot of high-end edge rushers on it. But even so, he is so long and he's so explosive that he just dominated pretty much everybody that he faced. He only had a 2.4% pressure rate allowed, which is incredibly strong. Even going back to his 2023 game against Virginia, he only really allowed 2 pressures in that game. So he does have some pretty high-end tape against high-end competition. It's just few and far between. But at the end of the day, I mean, results are results. In the entire 2024 season, he only allowed the quarterback to get touched twice the whole year. And one of those was a missed cut block, by the way. So again, we're talking about somebody who was locked down in pass pro because he has true NFL tools, and he showed that he has NFL tools. Combine all that pass pro tape with, in my opinion, some of the best run blocking tape by any tackle in this class, and you have a really strong candidate to be a top 50 pick, especially for teams that come from the Shanahan cinematic universe, I guess you can call it. All the teams that major in wide zone and that kind of run scheme, they're going to love Charles Grant because just his cut-ups on backside cutoff blocks on wide zone is outright disgusting. He and Chase Lunt from UConn are the 2 best in this class at doing exactly that. And of course, this goes back to his wrestling background too, because this is all about footwork and balance and torque. And I mean, you could just see all these cutback lanes that he opens up on these backside cutoffs. He is ridiculously good at this. So again, if you're a wide zone team, or at least a team that loves to use wide zone runs, Charles Grant's going to be your guy. Again, we'll have to see where he ends up at as a pass protector because we just don't have a whole lot of tape against, NFL competition. But I mean, shit, the tools are there. So again, I really do think he's going to be a top 50 pick. He just had his pro day last week and 29 NFL teams showed up. It's not often that 29 teams go to a William & Mary pro day. So believe me, everybody is interested in Charles Grant. He's going to go way higher than you think, and he deserves it. Now, next up, instead of a pass protector, we have a pass rusher. And the dirty secret of this draft class is that it's very thin at the top and very wide in the middle. So the difference in grade between the player that's probably going to go at pick 20 to 25 and the player that's going to go at pick 45 to 50 is very minimal. You could argue for a massive amount of guys to be late 1 to early 2 draft picks. And one of those names is an edge rusher that's kind of got lost in a sea of good edge rushers in this class. And so I want to take the time to spotlight him and maybe argue a case for why he should be a first round pick. And that's LSU's Bradyn Swinson. Longtime viewers of this channel know that I love power rushers. That was what made me put Jared Verse as my edge one last year, which ended up paying off, I would say. And that same mentality is why I have Bradyn Swinson as a top 40 pick in this class, if not a top 32 pick when all is said and done. I will concede he's not the bendiest guy ever. He only had a 7.13 3-cone, which is about at the threshold where you want it to be. I mean, preferably you want somebody who can do a sub 7 3-cone, but he is a little stiff in the hips there. I think he's only got average bend. His 4.33 shuttles average as well, and that shows up on tape. So you're really not taking him because he's this super fluid, bendy, malleable edge rusher. You're taking him because when he drops his pads and gets his length into a tackle's chest, they're going to go backwards. He's 6'4", 255 with 33.5-inch arms and just under 10-inch hands. So it's not even like he has overwhelming length and size, but it's the strength that he has pound for pound that really pops on tape. Usually the best edge rushers in the NFL are the ones who can win with power, and then they have finesse moves that they build off of that power. And Bradyn Swinson is that kind of rusher. He has devastating pound for pound power, then he has a whole bunch of finesse counters that he can work in and start to win the edge more quickly. But I love his pocket compression ability, I love his versatility, and I mean, the statistical profile is pretty damn impressive too. Because he's such a versatile edge rusher, he had a 32.6% pass rush win rate against true pass sets, meaning non-RPO, non-screen, non-play action, like just a real drop back pass. That was 6th best in this entire draft class. For reference, he's right below Abdul Carter, who is about 33.3%. So to be in the same neighborhood as Abdul Carter is really impressive, and he was also 5th in pass rush productivity, which is a formula that PFF has where they take kind of a combination of sacks and then weighted quarterback hits and hurries. They divide that by the number of snaps that are played, and it's a way to measure efficiency for a pass rusher based on the sample size of snaps, right? And 17.4 is a really, really high number. Again, that's right in between Abdul Carter, who is at 17.6, and Mike Green, who is at 17.3. Both of those guys obviously are going to be first round picks, and Bradyn Swinson did that in the SEC. He was going against really good competition. I love his hand usage. I think he's got a really good first step, not an elite first step, but a really good one, so he can threaten you with speed and then convert that to power. And I think that strength shows up as a run defender too. So he's not even just a third down player, he's an every down player. Now, the knock on him, of course, beyond just kind of his average bend in agility, is he's a 5th-year guy who didn't do a whole lot at Oregon and then, didn't do a whole lot in his first year at LSU, and then he popped finally as a 5th-year guy. But you have to remember, this is the last draft class that was really impacted by COVID. His freshman year was the COVID season, so that didn't really help in his development. It just kind of took him a little while to get off the ground, but he's here now, and he's one of the best players in the country. So whether he popped as a junior or he popped as a 5th-year senior, I don't really care because the tape is really, really excellent. This is a great edge rusher who's not going to go in the top 20 to 25 picks. So if you're picking late in the first round or early in the second round and you have to get an edge rusher, I think Bradyn Swinson might be the guy. Like if I was any of the teams from 27 to 32, Baltimore, Detroit, Washington, Buffalo, Kansas City, or Philadelphia, if I wanted to make my pass rush better and I wanted 5 years of contract control, I would take Bradyn Swinson at any of those picks and sleep like a baby. And speaking of sleeping like a baby, I do want to thank our sponsor of today's show for helping to make it possible in the first place, Bear Mattress. And yes, I'm aware that was a terrible transition, but I also didn't know what to write because it's 1 a.m. when I'm recording this and my brain is mush. So how about we just go straight to the ad read? I've had my Bear Mattress for over a year at this point. I got it delivered somewhere like late winter, early spring last year, and it still feels just as good as the day that I got it. I sleep well every single night, and as someone who has to be both a back sleeper and a side sleeper, depending on where my cats and my wife are hogging the bed at any given moment, this thing is a godsend. And depending on what type of sleeper you are, by the way, Bear can help you find the right mattress for you. You just have to go to Bear's website, take their sleep quiz, and they can match you to the perfect mattress for your sleep preferences. And once you do decide on which mattress you want, and by the way, they're all fiberglass free, that mattress will deliver right to your door, rolled up in a box that's super easy to set up. It only took me a few minutes to get it out of that box and then let it expand back to size, and there I go, had a new mattress just like that. There's also a 120-night sleep trial too, which is about 4 months long for those of you that can't do math. So you can test the mattress for that long once you get it to ensure that you love it. And I'm sure that you will, because I've had mine for a lot longer than 4 months at this point. So if you want to take the sleep quiz and upgrade your sleep with your own Bear mattress today, you can do that at bearmattress.com/Brett and use code Brett to get 40% off your purchase, plus 2 free pillows on top of that. That offer is better than what's currently on the website, by the way, for like their site-wide sale. So again, if you want the best possible discount, which is 40% off plus the 2 free pillows, use promo code Brett, because that's a better deal. So thank you once again to Bear Mattress for sponsoring today's show and kind of keeping us afloat here during another long, arduous draft season. And with that, we're going to dive right back into it and talk about yet another SEC pass rusher that somehow doesn't really get any attention at all. And I don't know why. I think the cat might be out of the bag about Omar Norman-Lott at this point, but I don't care. I'm putting him on here anyway. I think that the general consensus mock draft value for him right now of being somewhere in like the 70s to 90s is flat out wrong. I think he's going to go way earlier than that. And I wouldn't be shocked if, again, just like Bradyn Swinson, he starts to get talked about as like a late first round pick as we get closer to the draft. Now, is he an every down player? Absolutely not. He is a designated interior pass rusher, which is, again, sometimes a position that doesn't really go in the first round, but he is so damn good at it that I wouldn't be shocked if he did. He has the highest pass rush win rate of any interior defensive lineman in this class at 26%. Which is just crazy absurd. He had a pass rush productivity number of 12.9, which I can't find any other interior lineman with over 100 snaps in a season having that in the last decade. Not Quinnen Williams, not Christian Barmore, not Kalijah Cansey even. Definitely not any of the Michigan kids this year. Like, he's over double Mason Graham in that number, just to kind of put it into context. And it's not like he's playing bad offensive linemen. Like, he's in the SEC and just murdering everybody. He is explosive off the ball. He's really got great power for his size. He's only 6'2", 290. So again, he doesn't have a whole lot of weight behind him. But as far as pound for pound strength, he is way up there. He's really, really strong. But he's got great hips, great feet. Love his balance when he's kind of turning the corner. Like, he just kind of contorts himself and stays up at really weird angles to finish the rush. So I love his balance and body control. I also love his hands too. He has a habit of just grabbing the offensive lineman's wrist and using a forklift to control his arm and kind of hold it away from his chest while he just barrels into them and caves in the pocket. And they all freak out because they don't know what to do. They don't have control of their own hand, and he just takes advantage of it. Like, he just takes away their punch and they got nothing else. Now, I will say it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, he's not really a run defender at all, as his size would suggest. He's well under 300 pounds. But if you're just using him as a DPR, which is what Tennessee did, they rotated their defensive line a lot. So we had like less than 90 run defense snaps the entire year. But if you're just using him as an interior DPR, he is worth it. He's going to be exceptionally productive for you on passing downs. So if I'm running a team right now and I want to use that same kind of hockey line philosophy where I have different specialty defensive linemen for different downs and distances, Omar Norman-Lott's my guy. I'm going to pair him up with big run-stopping defensive tackles that I can typically get later in the draft or, sometimes in free agency at kind of reduced numbers. For whatever reason, nose tackles just really don't get paid. And, run-stopping 3 techniques definitely don't get paid because they're seen as just first and second down players. But that's kind of all I need them to be. I use them to stop the run and get us into 3rd and 7. I bring in Omar on 3rd and 7, and then he gets us off the field. That's the whole philosophy. So I love him for that role. Again, I think there's an outside shot he goes in the 1st round just as a DPR, but at worst, he's going to be a mid-2nd round pick because he is so ridiculously, historically effective in that particular role. Next up, I want to hit on this receiver class a little bit because I think it's been a little overly criticized at this point. Like, I know the popular thing is to say this receiver class sucks. I don't think it sucks. It's just different. Well, it's not as good as last year. I'll say that. Like, I'm not going to bullshit you. It's not as good as last year. But it doesn't mean that it's bad. You know, there's not Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, BTJ, Malik Neighbors, like all back to back to back. And it's not even 2020 where you had CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson and Brandon Ayuk in the first round and Michael Pittman in the second round, I think is where he was taken. It's not that kind of class, but it doesn't mean that there's not good players here, even going into day 3. And there is one particular day 3 sleeper. At least I assume he's going to be a day 3 pick. I'd be stunned if he gets taken before the 4th round, but there is one day 3 sleeper that I truly think early on in his career is going to be a starting NFL slot receiver, and a pretty good one at that. Jimmy Horn Jr. did line up a little bit of everywhere at Colorado, about 323 snaps out wide and 371 in the slot. But of course, in the NFL, I don't really see him lining up everywhere. I see him really more being a full-time slot receiver because he's just not that big. He's only got about 175 pounds in his frame. And hell, in person, I've seen him twice now, both at the Shrine Bowl and at the Combine. He doesn't even really look that big either. So he is probably a full-time slot receiver, but that doesn't mean that he's just going to be running option routes and shallow crosses all day. You can legitimately have him be a deep threat from the slot. He's both explosive and smooth, which is not necessarily a common combination. Sometimes the smooth guys don't have a next gear, and sometimes the explosive guys are just all over the place in terms of body control and footwork, but he's got both. He just always looks in control, but he's in control while moving at top speed, and that showed up at the Combine as well. Next Gen Stats tracks receiver speed through all the drills at the Combine, and he was either at the top or within the top 4 of the gauntlet drill, the dagger route drill, the go route, and the slot sail route, which checks out because he ran that a lot at Colorado. So for me, I don't necessarily pay attention to just the time speed, which also was very good for him. He did time well, but it's the game speed that I pay attention to. The fact that he went through all those drills faster than all or almost all of the receivers in this class really speaks to the confidence that he has in his own hands and feet. There were receivers that I was watching go through these drills right before and right after him that I know were going to be drafted a lot earlier than him that were straight up loafing it through the drills and not moving that fast, simply because I think they were focused more on catching the ball rather than catching the ball at speed. And the point of the drill is to show that you can do the football stuff at your top speed, because your 40 kind of doesn't matter if you never run that fast when you have to actually run a route and catch the ball at the same time. So the fact that Jimmy Horn Jr. could do all the football stuff at top speed, that means a lot. That is the point of those Next Gen Stats measurements. It's literally measuring game speed against time speed. Now, going back to the tape side real quick, he's also a great route runner, and he has much improved hands from earlier in his career. Plus, he's straight up fearless over the middle, so I have no worries about him making a tough catch in traffic. It's going to do a lot of damage to him because he doesn't have a lot of body armor, and that's the one downside, is lack of size and potential durability. But he's not going to be afraid. Like, he's willing to take the contact. You just have a worry about how much contact he can take while being the size that he is. I know a lot of people also bring up production as a downside for him, just because he didn't have crazy numbers this year, but you have to remember he was in a really crowded room with Travis Hunter, LeJontay Wester, and Will Shepherd all there, and he still had big pops on tape and in person. So I don't really rely on just the raw production for him because it was so crowded. I more rely on what he looked like on tape, what he looked like at the Combine, and what he looked like when I saw him route people up in person at the Shrine Bowl, and he checked every single box. So if I'm looking for an early to mid day 3 dedicated slot receiver that can come in and be a contributor and a pro immediately, Jimmy Horn Jr. is my pick. For our last underrated player, I'm doing another receiver because I'm trying to drive the point home here that this class is not as bad as people think it is. I wouldn't even call it bad to begin with. But I am cheating a little bit because this player, in my opinion, should be a top 25 pick. And hearing that, you might be thinking, okay, well, if he's a top 25 guy, why is he underrated? Like, that makes no sense. It's not like he's a day 3 sleeper like Jimmy Horn or like, Chim DK from Florida, who's also going to go on day 3, who's a legit sleeper, especially if you run an offense that runs like 40% crossing routes. Cough, cough, anyone in the Shanahan tree? Chim DK, by the way. Watch him, he's really good. But it's not like he's one of those guys, right? Like, he's a first round talent, so why is he underrated? To me, he's underrated because popular media consensus right now, especially from people that I respect very much, they consider him to be somebody who might, like keyword might, go in the 40s to 50s. And I think he's going to go like top 25, at least top 32. Like, I think he is that good. I think he is arguably the most complete receiver in this draft. So to me, if I think you're more complete than all the guys that are probably going to go on day one at this point, and you're going to go on day two, by the rules of grammar, you're underrated. When I was watching all the receivers go through the same drills back to back to back to back at the combine, Jayden Higgins stood out, and he stood out immediately. It wasn't just the size and the length, it was the fact that he was so quick and so fluid despite being so big. He moved just as well as the small receivers in this class while being 6'4", 215. And that time speed of 4.47 translated to game speed as well. I mean, he was flying through all the drills. And there were other big name receivers working out that day as well. And I'm not going to name names, but quite frankly, they just looked like they were moving at an entirely different speed. And I mean that in a bad way. Jayden Higgins looked like a true number one at the NFL level. And then you go away from just the pure athleticism and you go more towards the production and the analytics and of course the tape, and he checks every single box over there as well. He had 2.61 yards per route run this season, which is awesome. He had the 13th most snaps against single coverage this year out of every receiver in this class, and yet the third most yards against single coverage at just over 600. He also had the most first downs at 31 and the second most touchdowns at 9, and a ridiculous 4.57 yards per route run just against man coverage. Like, that is an obscene number. As far as contested catch rate goes, he was at 53%, which is very healthy. But when you consider that that was on 30 contested targets, just because of how many go routes they had him run, I mean, that's like triple Luther Burden, who had 11 contested targets, just because they run entirely different route trees. But for him to have roughly the same contested catch rate on 30 contested targets that Burden had on 11, that's gross. I'm not going to lie. Don't be fooled, though, just because he had those 30 contested targets doesn't mean that he can't get open. Obviously, he can. Again, really fluid, really explosive in short areas. It's just when 29% of your targets are on just go routes, like, you're just going to end up with that many contested targets. It's almost unavoidable. But it worked. I'm not going to lie. It definitely worked. He had more explosive gains against man coverage than any other receiver in this class at 21. So I'm not going to begrudge Iowa State for using him in that way. But I do think that once he gets to the NFL level with A, better quarterback play, and B, probably a more, let's just say, creative offense that he's going to get to play around in, like, I think the sky's the limit for him. If you're letting him do more than just go routes, post routes, corners, and like the odd curl here and there, and you let him run an entire route tree, like, I'm telling you, this could be an actual number one receiver that is somehow probably not going to get drafted in the first round. It's happened with A.J. Brown. It happened with DK Metcalf. I'm pretty sure Terry McLaurin got taken in like the third round once upon a time. And Jayden Higgins, to me, shouldn't go that late, but he probably will, and that's a shame. He's a phenomenal prospect, a phenomenal player, and if it was up to me, he'd go in the top 32. All right, that'll do it for me today. A reminder, if you want even more draft talk from me, especially a lot more frequently than you're going to get it on this channel, we have a bunch of fun draft content live right now over on our podcast channel, the Bootleg Football Podcast. If you don't know it already, we have prospect interviews, we have breakdowns, we have our annual 10 Gem specials. We'll probably have some of our friends come on in the draft industry and do interviews pretty soon here, as is tradition. So again, if you want even more draft talk, go check that out. That is the Bootleg Football Podcast. I appreciate all of you for watching to the end, because the algorithm gods really love that. So that helps the channel. And I don't have anything else, but I will have another upload on this channel very, very soon. I know it's been a while since I've been consistently uploading here, but trust me, it will get better. I have a bunch of videos in the pipeline that'll be coming soon. So thank you for watching, and I will see all of you sometime next week, I think, probably.